Welcome. In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about how to make your way through each learning outcome. Remember that in this course, your grade is based on whether or not you show proficiency on the learning outcomes. And so for each learning outcome, there's going to be a set of assignments that you're going to work on. Always start by completing the readings associated with the learning outcome. Those will be numbered like 1.1, 1.2, and so forth on the calendar and in WAMAP. Once you finish the readings, then you should be ready to work on the homework. The goal there is to get 50% or more because your quiz for that learning outcome will not open until you have 50% or more on your homework. If you cannot get 50% or more, then review the readings, revise your work, reattempt problems, regenerate problems. Of course, post questions, ask for help. Once you get to 50%, you can move on. Although I do recommend you try to get above 90%, not only because it shows that you're making progress, but it will also help your overall grade at the end of the quarter. Once you get past that mark, though, then your first attempt to show proficiency is the quiz. This is sort of like the first and somewhat simpler way to show proficiency. All the questions are taken off of the homework. They'll typically be between 2 and 4 questions on the quiz. It's timed, but there should be more than enough time for you to finish if you've done that work on the homework. If at the end of the quiz you get 2 or more, you'll be able to move on. If not, you'll do the same thing as we talked about before. Review homework, reattempt old problems from the homework, revise any work that you have to make sure you can correct your errors, ask for help, and then take that quiz another time, a second time. You should be able to pass the quiz on 2 attempts. If you can't, it's no big deal because you can use a token to request a third or further attempt. But of course your goal would be to finish in the first 2 attempts so you don't have to worry about using a token. Once you get a 2 or more on the quiz, you can open up the learning checks and the writing checks. Now, even though a 2 does not count as passing that quiz, it will still open those up. So keep that in mind. You probably want to get a 3 or higher, which shows proficiency for that quiz before you move on. But technically, a 2 will open up any further learning checks or writing checks. Now, I recommend that you do the learning check first because it's somewhat like a quiz. It's perhaps a little bit more difficult in that the problems might look a little bit different or be slightly more challenging, but they're all going to be based on the homework and quiz problems you've already seen up to that point. You have 2 attempts to complete those, so your goal would be to get a 3 or higher, which shows proficiency for that assignment. And the same is going to be true for the writing check. However, the writing check only typically has one question that you're going to write up very neatly. Always be sure that you look at the scoring guide that will be provided for you so that you know exactly what is expected. That will be graded by your instructor once you submit it. And then your instructor will grade that and give you feedback if you did not show proficiency. If you do score a 3 or higher on a writing check, then you're done and you move on to the next learning outcome where you'll begin with a new set of readings and begin that process all over again. If you don't pass a writing check, you will need to use a token and do all of the steps that are required to get approved for another attempt at a writing check. But that's basically the flow of the work for each learning outcome. Start with the readings, work on the homework, get at least 50% or more, preferably 90% or more. Take the quiz, pass that quiz preferably with a 3 or higher, and then move on to the learning check and the writing check if there is one. If you have any questions about this, please let me know in the forums But hopefully that gives you an idea of how you should work through each learning outcome in this course so that you can begin to show that you've learned the material, which will all contribute to your final course grade. So that's the end of this video. We'll see you online.